if you fix yourself, you can fix your relationships. You get to fix what's going on inside of you and face that shit. If I can control my emotions, my relationships are gonna be way better. But if I don't learn how to control my mind and control my emotions, the relationship's not gonna work with anybody. Vulnerability is a magnet. It is the life force of a relationship. If we opened up, we were called bitches, pussy, you're soft, you're weak, that kind of thing, so we learned to close up.
Describe a day in the life of the most common symptoms. What would that look like?
Most common symptoms would be you're gonna get through it wherever you're at if you do the work, but you get to face it. Just face it, fucking do it, and you'll get through it.
Jameson Ryder-Sand is the head relationship coach at The Empowered Man, and he's helped thousands of families stay together. He helps us communicate better with our partners and become the man, the husband, father our families deserve. So in today's podcast episode, we're going to be interviewing him and giving you some practical tools and strategies you can use today to communicate better, to get more intimacy, connection, and sex, and ultimately how to be the man you know you can be for the ones that matter the most. He's helped thousands of our clients, and in today's podcast episode of the Empowered Man podcast, we're going to break down the simple strategies and tactics you can use to have the exact same results. Health coach for The Empowered Man. Jameson, how are you?
Great, brother.
That's amazing.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. You've flown all the way from the States.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
How you feeling?
Pretty good. Not jet lagged at all.
Yeah.
You know? A little jet lagged, but yeah. No, it's been amazing to be here. So
we love having you
well
here.
Worth
So
it.
do you want to share with the listeners a little bit about what you do for The Empowered Man? What do you do each and every day with our clients?
Absolutely. So what I mainly do is relationship focused and mindset, I would say.
Yeah.
A lot of it is mindset. A lot of relationships are it's mindset. So one of the things I do is a relationship hot seat call where guys come on and share what they're going through. And I really try to set a comfortable place for them to be honest and authentic and be able to drop into what's really going on with them, you know? And I think it takes a certain energy to create that space for men to be able to do that. And my goal is always to get them to be as authentic as possible so that we can get to the root of the problem quickly. So really helping them and supporting them with whatever they're going through.
Yeah, so like relationships is the name of the game, right? If you've got a shit relationship with your wife, with your children, with yourself, with your team, it doesn't matter how much money or success you have. Doesn't matter if you have a six pack. Like that is the name of the game. That's what we're designed for. So what are the biggest problems that you observe on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis with men and their relationships? Because we can go in so many directions with that.
Absolutely.
What are the problems that you're observing?
Well, one of the things that we get a lot at Empowered Men is men in a gray area in their relationship. Their relationship is struggling. They are struggling within their relationship. And possibly going to leave their relationship or make it work. And they're kind of at the end of they've exhausted all of the resources they've had available to them. And they're coming to us some of them out of desperation, you know, and really wanting to make their relationship work, but not having the tools to be able to do it. And I think one of the beautiful things we do at Empowered Man is give them the tools to be able to heal it, you know, heal the relationship and possibly reverse it. And even if they don't, they're still better off as men in the end. You know, even if they can't heal the relationship, they're still empowered at the end, you know, and better internally. So
yeah. So when they're in that gray area, like obviously I've gone through a relationship breakdown. I'm sure you've had many relationships that are broken down, right?
Yep.
What is causing this epidemic of relationship breakdown? 50% of marriages end in divorce. So the gray area or the wife saying, I don't love you anymore is like the end goal. When you talk to these men, because you've helped thousands of men through this movement and through your life, what are they coming to you with? Is it arguments? Is it lack of connection, lack of sex? Like if you were to describe the day of some of these men, day in the life, what would you say? Because I think a lot of people listening and go, oh my God, that's me. Sure. And they don't realize the signs are there. So like if you describe a day in the life of the most common symptoms, what would that look like?
I would say most common symptoms would be a guy that's working his ass off, working really hard during the day, comes home, is unacknowledged, His wife doesn't praise him or appreciate him. And he feels like he's just in a grind, and kind of suffering through the day and coasting through the day, and doesn't really have any life in him, and just struggling to through the monotony of everyday life, and I think what we do is give him the tools to go through that, like, and get out of the suffering and the grind. And a lot of that is mindset and being able to, breathe life into his life again, give him back his life and energy and life force, so.
Yeah. Because when you're in that place, no, the answer is like, when you're in that place and your relationship's not working and you're not feeling appreciated or respected and you don't feel that praise, that's a word I don't use often, but it's such a powerful word. When you're in that place, it can just feel like this is the way life is, fuck it. And a lot of guys sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
So we'll get into like how we fix it a bit later, but I really want to focus on the core problems here. Why do so many men sweep shit under the rug? Because if we're honest with ourselves, right, we know probably not getting laid enough, probably not appreciated enough, probably not respected enough, probably grinding. A lot of guys can relate to that.
Absolutely.
I've been there, you've been there.
Yep.
There's a lot of guys listening who probably go, yeah, that's me. But like, why do we sweep this shit under the rug so much? What happens?
Honestly, I think it's we get scared. We get scared to be real, and I think that, to me, vulnerability is a magnet, and it is the life force of a relationship. And I think it's scary to open up, especially as men, because I know, at least for me personally, and a lot of men that I've talked to, if we opened up, we were called bitches, pussy, you're soft, you're weak, that kind of thing. So we learn to close up. We learn to shut off and not allow our emotions out, our authenticity to come out. And I mean, I'm a big proponent of flipping that around, because I think vulnerability is the courage to be authentic, to me, that's fucking manly, to put yourself out there and be willing to be rejected, be willing to be put down, what's more manly than that? Like, really just putting yourself out there. So yeah, hope that answered the question.
That's so powerful. I've never heard it framed that way before. I agree with you on the vulnerability piece. I also know that in the past, I've shared vulnerability with my partner. Mm-hmm. And when I tell Rosie how I'd be feeling, like there's a period 2.5 years ago where I was severely depressed and I was stuck in that place for 6 months. And she would ask me, like, is everything okay? What's going on? And I'd be honest, I'm like, I'm depressed. I feel trapped. I feel lost. Mm-hmm. And she was my cheerleader. My wife was there for me through my darkest time. We just had a daughter. There was even a point where I was suicidal. But I did notice there was this point where she almost had to stop being a cheerleader because she didn't feel safe and secure because I went too far the other way.
Yeah.
I was vulnerable in the point of like, everything's fucked. It's not working. I'm stressed. And I was telling her, but she's like, when are you going to get it together?
Yeah.
So I agree with everything you've said. I'd love to know how you coach our guys and how you've been able to support yourself in having that balance between being vulnerable without being a bitch. Because I don't think it's being a bitch, vulnerable is a bitch. But if you're vulnerable and you do nothing about it, and you're just stuck in victim, that's a really dark place. So how do you find that balance?
Absolutely. And it is a difficult balance to get right, I think, because vulnerability to me isn't being a puddle of tears on the floor and broken and like, oh, poor me, what am I going to do? Like, and just being in victim, because if you're living in victim, she's not going to feel safe. So vulnerability to me is, fuck, I'm really struggling right now. Like, I'm going to be real with you. This is really hard for me, but I'm going to find my way through it. So opening up, but letting her know that that you're going to do something about it, that you're not just going to sit in and be a victim to it. So I think that balances it out. Yeah. To me.
So it's being honest about what's going on, but then providing a solution and certainty.
Exactly.
And it's funny, you can't give that certainty to your wife or your kids or your team unless you have it within yourself.
Yes.
Just really quickly, if you're getting value from this podcast episode, I'd appreciate a massive favor. If you're watching on YouTube, give this a thumbs up, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, give this 5 stars. It helps us reach more men, keep more families together, and get better guests onto the show. So if you're getting value, all that I ask is you take 5 seconds to give it a thumbs up or 5 stars so we can help more people and keep delivering you epic value. So I know, just jumping ship a bit here, like vulnerability is important, doing it with certainty is important, but it's hard to be certain as a man in some areas.
Yeah.
So for example, you can be certain in your business, I've got this, I'm in control, and you come home and you have no fucking certainty.
Yeah.
You don't know what to expect. You don't know who you're going to get. She doesn't know who she's going to get. You've had a lot of challenges with anxiety, depression, as have I. How did you find certainty as a man? And I'd love for you to speak into certainty with our clients and where they lack it. Like, talk to me about this idea of certainty married to vulnerability.
Totally. Certainty to me was a fucking process. I'm not going to lie. And it took a long time for me to be certain within myself. And I mean, anxiety is something that I still have, and I still move through it every day. It's just that I've learned how to move through it and how to be with it. So it still comes up. I just have done it so many times that I've moved through the anxiety, through the fear, that now I know how to handle it better.
Could you explain what anxiety is for you? Just for anyone listening who might not know what it is. Yeah,
absolutely. For me, it's actually it has a lot to do with self-doubt and just uncertain if I'm going to be able to handle a situation properly, and projecting myself into the future thinking maybe I won't be able to handle it properly. So for me, facing my anxiety head on was the best way for me to do it. So one of my favorite sayings that I've received from one of my coaches was, use fear as your compass. And that to me means if I have a fear, if I have anxiety about something, go directly fucking at it and attack it, because that's the quickest way to a breakthrough. Because if you want to have a breakthrough, it's on the other side of that. So it's not a break around, it's not a break under, it's a fucking breakthrough. You got to go directly at it. So I learned when I was first going through growth and transformation and my first class, I learned to go directly at my fears. So I was 11 years ago when I started on my journey, I had crippling anxiety and I was shy, I was reserved. Public speaking was my biggest fear. And I was absolutely fucking terrified of it. And I remember the first class that I went to was with 200 other people. And I knew public speaking was my biggest fear. And I challenged myself on the first day. It was a 5-day course. On the first day, I was like, I'm getting up. I'm getting up on the mic. This is going to suck. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm getting up. Chickened out. So the second day, I was like, all right, I'm doing it today. No matter what, I'm getting up. Chickened out. Third day, I was like, I'm getting up. All right. So I had an opportunity. The trainer was up in front of the room. And I remember very distinctly, he asked a question and my hand just shot up. And then he said, Jameson. I was like, oh, fuck. So somebody handed me the mic and I stood up and I was literally visibly shaking with the mic in my hand. And I remember distinctly just saying, hi, my name is Jameson, and I completely forgot what I was going to say. In front of 200 people. And I just sat back down like, oh my fucking God, what did I just do? Just in a puddle of my own self beat up, you know, like, this is why you don't get up. This is why you don't do this. Like, you're just a bitch. Like, I'm never going to get past this. Yeah. But I learned a valuable lesson that day, because 2 people later that shared, somebody got up and said, thank you. Whatever your name is, I forget your name, but thank you for getting up, because public speaking is my biggest fear as well. And I wouldn't be standing if it wasn't for you. So that completely took me out of my own shit and out of the shit that I was stewing in my own self beat up. And I was able to see it from a different perspective. Like, even if I fail, even if I realize my worst fear of fucking up in front of 200 people, making an ass out of myself, I'm all right. And I just inspired somebody else.
Yeah.
That was watching me,
powerful.
you know? So it really shifted everything within me. And then I learned, all right, well, let me go at every single fear that I have. Even if it hurts, I'm strong enough to get back up. But I think with anxiety, a lot of people will stop at the fear instead of moving through it.
Yep.
And I think we're a lot stronger than we think we are. And we just make up all these stories in our heads of shit that's going to happen. But it's not usually that bad.
It's never that bad.
Yeah.
Never, ever, ever. Will Smith
Absolutely.
did a really powerful thing where he was jumping out of a helicopter from a bungee cord.
Yeah.
Right? And he was terrified. It was skydiving, not that, skydiving. He was terrified the entire time for weeks beforehand. He's like, I'm going to jump out of a plane. I'm terrified. He created that story in his head of how scary it was for 2 weeks. And then when he finally jumped out of the fucking plane, he was blissful.
Yeah.
Because he was in the moment.
Yeah.
And that fear he'd been thinking about for weeks or months was not real. It wasn't true. And he'd created the story the entire time. And this is why I asked the question, because you just talked about anxiety, which some men listening to this podcast won't even know what it is, but they actually have it.
Yeah.
Because think about having that vulnerability and fear when it comes to having a relationship or conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
Like how many men aren't having enough communication or connection or sex or intimacy in their marriage, or they resent their partner and they don't know how to say that in the right way.
Yeah.
They're terrified of doing it.
Yeah.
We have CEOs that you coach, guys who run multi-million-dollar companies who can tell their employees exactly what they're thinking and feeling in the right way, but God forbid they do that with their wife and kids.
Yeah.
So how do you take this principle of diving into your fears or breaking through them? I love that so much. How do you take that and apply that to your relationships? How do you take that and apply that to your wife if you're arguing, disconnected? How do you take that to your kids and connect with them? How do you do that personally?
I mean, a lot of the advice I give or the coaching that I give is how to frame things up. And I think that's a huge part of communicating it properly, is how to voice certain things. Because I think a lot of guys, we're very logical. We're very like, let me just say exactly what I'm, and it's almost too penetrative for a female to be able to absorb. So I think a softer approach, especially if you're trying to say something that's really hard for you to say, I think it's framing it up in a way that's just honest, you know, like, honestly, this is really hard for me to say. It's hard for me to talk to you about this, but I want us to have an amazing relationship. So I'm going to talk to you about it. So I'm going to voice something that's hard for me to voice. And that to me will take the walls down, take the guards down from the woman, you know, and allow them to receive it in a better way. Because in my experience, when somebody is vulnerable like that and honest, the other person is 99% of the time receptive. You know, people have respect for people that are just honest and say like, hey, this is fucking hard for me to do, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go at my fear. I'm going to go at my fear of talking to you about this. And especially if you haven't done that with her before, she might be very surprised and very receptive to that. And that also expresses that you're willing to grow, that you're willing to work on yourself. And most people will be very receptive to that. Most women will be.
Absolutely. So. It's such a powerful frame. I want to go into some more frames, but before we do, like I have a disclaimer for this.
Yeah.
Because some guys will hear this and go, wait a minute. So if I'm unhappy with my wife, I can go to her or my kids or my team and say, hey, this is really hard for me to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because I appreciate our relationship. I want to be better. We don't have enough sex.
Right. Directly into
direct. Yeah. So there's a few caveats to this. The first one is tonality, right?
Yeah.
Like your tone of voice betrays a lot. So it gets to be calm, curious, and empathetic. The second thing is making sure we come from a frame of being open and asking if they're part of the journey instead of being like attack, attack, attack.
Yeah.
When your wife or partner feels attacked, she defends, even if she knows you're right.
Yeah.
Like you can tell her something she knows to her core is true, But if she feels attacked, she will defend and it will cause conflict. It won't cause resolution. So if we can combine this idea of being open and honest in a calm tone, asking with some frames, which I'll get you to share more of, like, is it okay if I share something with you? Or I would love to share something because, and then saying, I've noticed that we're less intimate. So softening it.
Totally.
Men don't know how to do that, right?
Right.
The second thing I would say is it doesn't always work the first time and it doesn't always work the 10th time.
Yeah.
As men, we seem to do this weird fucking thing where we try something once and then we put it in the too hard bucket.
Yep.
Like imagine if you had kids or if you're a kid and you stand up once over, like you're a baby, and your parents are like, you're a fucking idiot. You can't try that ever again. Just roll around the world. And you just roll into this podcast studio.
Yep.
It's ridiculous, right?
Right.
We do that as men. So two things here. One, try not to attack, soften it. Two, make sure that you put in the reps. It's not going to happen overnight. She might take it terribly.
Yeah.
That just means you get to practice.
Exactly.
Right? What are some frames you have to soften it? And what's some advice you have for practicing this stuff? Because I know a lot of guys, you give them the tools, they try it, doesn't work, but they still keep trying and they have an amazing relationship.
Yeah.
How do we push through that? And what are the reframes?
I mean, it takes persistence. It takes practice, you know? And I think when you're starting out, have compassion for yourself, you know? Like, know that you're trying something new and you're gonna fall. You're gonna fall on your face. You're gonna fuck it up. But you can get back up and try again. You know, it's all right. You're not gonna fuck up your life completely. You can always repair things. You can, well, not always. I mean, if you really fuck up. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most conversational things you can make an effort to repair if you really fuck it up, you know?
Just on that, before you share the softening.
Yeah.
Something I forgot that I wanted to share is that's where the anxiety piece comes in, because so many men we work with, you've experienced this, they're so successful, but they're fucking terrified of doing this with their wife.
Yeah.
Like you give them the exact frame you're about to share and they're like, that's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've never fucking done it before.
Exactly.
But you get to a point, I'm sure you and Kristen, who's my coach, your fiance, and my wife, Rosie, I can literally be upset at Rosie and 2 minutes after getting upset, be like, hey, babe, I know it wasn't intentional. I just realized the way you said that in front of our friends, I felt disrespected. And I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And she has the emotional intelligence to go, oh my God, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. How would you like me to do it next time?
Yeah.
When I say something triggering, she'll say, hey, you're a bit of a dick right there. I didn't mean to do it. And I don't get triggered. I take it on board.
Yeah.
Whereas we used to react, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Because we've done so many reps. No one sees that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to chuck that in there. What are some tools you could use to soften this and to get better at this besides persistence? Yeah.
I would say, you know, have patience with yourself, have compassion for yourself. Know that you're not going to get it right the first few times and keep at it, you know, like keep practicing it. Keep practicing it everywhere, not just with your wife. Like if you want to get better at communicating that kind of stuff, practice it with your coworkers or employees or friends, family. You know, you can practice that vulnerability with everybody. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So one way you can do that is practice it with your friends, with other people that are close to you.
How would you practice it? So you've given a lot of our clients some amazing frames. Like we had a guy yesterday at the event. We had 4 guys do a testimonial. One guy was just like, my marriage is saved. It's so much better. We're communicating well. We're connected. She appreciates me. She respects me. We're having sex. I said, how long have you been in the program for? 8 weeks. Well, how long did you have problems for? 22 years.
Wow.
So like you're helping these guys fix their marriages, get connection, appreciation, and respect in a matter of weeks. And they've tried counseling and therapy. It didn't work. If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.
Yeah. So what are the frames you give these men, and what can someone take home to have these conversations?
Totally. I mean, the frames, I think as men, we get to have actionable things to do to get results, right? And if it's too lofty, if it's too floaty or confusing, then we tune out. So I try to be very concise and to the point and say, hey, maybe try this. This is what I would do in that situation. This is how I would frame it up. Like, what if you framed it up like this? What if you said this in that specific way, in that specific situation? So I think a lot of framing it up, it's very situational to me. So I would have various different responses for different situations. But I think framing it up in some kind of way, balancing out, like if you're approaching her with something that is hard for you to approach her with, and maybe it's negative, or maybe it's giving her feedback, or we don't have enough sex or something, make sure that she knows what, first of all, actually, let me go backwards for a second. Ask for permission and ask if, hey, do you have 5 minutes at some point today for us to have a conversation? If you just go up to her and say, hey, we need to talk, walls are going to go directly up and she's not going to be receptive.
Yeah.
So I like to soften it as much as possible. You know, do you have 5 minutes at some point today? Can we talk? You know, I would love to talk to you. And then if she says yes, awesome, cool. We'll have a conversation. And then at the beginning of the conversation, go into it softly as well. And start with some vulnerability. Let her know how much you love her, and that, first of all, I love you, and I want you to know that I'm going to say this with love. And honestly, this is fucking hard for me, and it's hard for me to say that it's hard for me, you know? And then go into it from there. And in my experience, that helps lower the walls and lowers the probability of her getting triggered. So then she's more receptive to it. So a lot of the frames I give out are just little tidbits like that.
Yep.
That make a world of difference.
They just soften it and they make it more receivable.
Yeah.
Because the way you deliver it isn't always the way it's received, and the way it's received isn't always the way you deliver it.
Yeah.
You can have the right intentions and they might take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
You can't control that. All you can control is your delivery.
Yeah.
There's two things I want to touch on here. One's ownership, and the other one is, what do you do if they react negatively? Right?
Yeah.
So let's start with the second one. Let's say you do this and you do it well. You listen to a podcast or you get a coach and we help you build this out, and you want your relationship to be better, and you're like, fuck, I've got this covered, and you deliver it exactly as intended. No tonality. You're calm, you're patient, you're not attacking. You're just trying to like connect with your partner, and she loses her shit.
Yep.
What happens then?
Well, I mean, I would say try not to take it personally. Don't take it personally. Know that she might get triggered, but you have control over your response. If you get triggered by her getting triggered, it's just going to be a disaster. It's going to make it way worse. So a lot of the coaching I do as well is how to you know, or to be triggered and not react, you know? So it's how to respond and how to deal with that rising like emotion within you, or that rising anger, or like, fuck you, you know, like that, controlling it, pausing, doing some deep breaths, or even saying, you know what? I love you, babe. I'm feeling a bit triggered right now. I get to go for a walk. I love you. I'll be right back.
Do you know how
it's
that is so
okay
nice?
to do that. Totally.
It's so powerful.
Absolutely.
And it's so difficult because we just want to fucking fix it right then and there, you know?
Yeah. And that to me is when we do that, when we react like that, that's ego. That's our ego just, whoop, it's taking over and taking control of our minds. So for me, I like to have my ego on a leash. It's like a pit bull on a leash. I can let that shit go. I can let it off the leash if I want to, but I have control over it. So the ego for me is separate from the authentic self. And my authentic self, my goal is to have a good relationship. That's my authentic self's goal. My ego is going to get me into trouble if I don't have control over it. So a lot of what I coach is gaining control of your ego, not allowing it to run off the leash or just not even have a leash, where you're just allowing it to go all over the place, you know, and attacking everybody around you.
Yeah. Is that how you describe someone losing control of their ego? Because I think we all understand losing control as men. It's like when you yell at the kids, when you're triggered at your team, when you argue with your wife, and then what happens after you lose control as a man? You feel guilt, you feel shame. Yeah. You sit there going, I won't do that again, and it happens again. So is that sort of what you mean by losing control of the ego?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say being able to respond versus reacting is a distinction that is really important. And being able to respond is calming yourself down in the moment, taking a deep breath, and thinking, what do I want this outcome to be? Instead of, I need to be right. The ego needs to be right. And that will get you into trouble most of the time.
Yeah. So it is insane to expect your wife or partner to give you sex, to give you appreciation, to give you respect.
Yeah.
If you're not filling her cup.
Yeah.
For years, I wanted my wife to give me more. And my story was, I'm making money, I'm providing, we got a business, we got all the nice things. Why am I not fucking getting what I deserve here? And it was only when I started to take ownership of my role in this relationship that shit began to change. Yeah. I started giving her more appreciation, understanding her deeper, finding out how she receives love. I asked her questions. I got curious. As I gave her more, by proxy, by default, she gave me more back. Mm-hmm. But the intention wasn't give so I can receive. The intention was to give. And so many men struggle with this because they go, that's not fair. Life's not fucking fair. Yeah. When you fill your wife's cup, when she feels safe and secure, she desires you. She wants to have sex with you. She's intimate with you. So many men struggle with ownership in their relationships. Yep. They blame, they point the finger, playing the blame game. They don't point the finger back at them.
Yep.
How do we take ownership as men? Mm-hmm. Like, there's two tiers to this. One, how do you know your relationship's breaking down? Because a lot of us sweep it under the rug and we only change when the wife leaves. Number two, how do you take ownership for the shit that's not working? Because she has a massive role to play.
Yeah, totally.
But we play this blame game. Like, how do we fix that? How do you fix that with these guys?
Well, taking ownership for me is willingness to go first, and take ownership is a male trait to me, you know, and unconditionally giving without expectation is huge. But taking ownership is really just realizing, fuck, like I have a part in every part of my relationship. And if I'm not getting what I desire in my relationship, that's probably because I'm not doing something, or I am doing something that is not beneficial to the relationship. So I think a lot of what we do at Empowered Man is diving deep into shit. What are those things that I'm not doing correctly, that I'm not doing, that are creating the result that I want? So it's a deep dive, willingness to be honest with yourself, and realizing that, you know, we have a huge part in why we are not receiving what we would like to receive. And something else you touched on, unconditional giving, I think is really important in a relationship. Giving from a place of, I'm going to give because I love her, and I'm not going to expect anything in return, I think is huge. And it's hard for men because it's like, well, I keep giving and I'm not getting anything back. But be patient. Keep giving, you know, keep giving her what she what she desires, find out what her love language is, find out how she receives love. Like, does she love words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, like whatever it is for her, how it specifically receives love, keep giving that to her. And you've conditioned her to think of you in a certain way over 10, 20 years or whatever. So it's going to take time for that to be reversed, for that to be corrected. It's going to take time for her to actually trust that the changes you're making are going to stick.
Yeah.
So it takes patience, and it takes a lot of repetition, before you can get some results sometimes. Sometimes it's instant, but a lot of times it's not.
Yeah, and it's about being realistic with yourself, because it is true. Like, as men, again, we have this quick fix mentality. We have 5, 10, 15, 20 years of shit relationships. And we go, well, I'm trying. How could you give up on this marriage? And we go into this victim mentality, this blame game, throwing our toys out the cot. I've done it. You've done it. But it's not about your partner not being a part of this. She has a role to play. If she's not intimate with you, that's partly on her. If she's yelling at you, that's on her. But I think the point is, you can't control her.
Yeah.
God, I wish we could. We can't, right? Okay. All we can control is our responses, our inputs that create the outputs. And when I truly believe, because I've seen it in my own life, when you give unconditionally, it's not like you're a simp. You're not like, I'll do everything for her. It's find out what she's not getting that she wants. Mm-hmm. Find out what you used to do that you stopped doing. Put more effort and energy in. And over a long enough time, she's naturally you talked about magnetism. She's gonna magnetize towards you. Yep. Like Rosie the other day, we had intimacy issues throughout our relationship. And I said to her in Hawaii 2 months ago on a holiday, calmly and patiently, this might trigger you, might upset you. I'm just a little bit upset because we haven't had sex on this holiday once, and we normally have a lot of sex. Mm-hmm. And I know you're tired and I know you're stressed, I get it, but I don't feel wanted. And she got triggered, she got upset, she got, hurt, she felt attacked. But I sat with her and we worked through it. I didn't blame her. I said, I know I'm probably a part of this, but I feel like I'm giving you what you want. Mm-hmm. And she's been putting in so much more effort. The other day, I wake up, I'm horny. I'm a guy, right? My dick's hard. Yep. So I go and give her a hug, and she knows I'm horny, and I start rubbing myself against her, and she's exhausted. She's tired, she's unwell, and she looks down and goes, do we need to sort this out? Mm. And I loved hearing that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yes, we do. Mm-hmm. She takes me to the room. 5 minutes later, I was in a rush, all good. I'm not upset. I didn't last that long. I don't give a fuck. I had a great time, went to work, amazing. Yep. But that wouldn't have happened 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's happened the last 2 years that we've built this relationship where we can communicate and connect, and I can tell her how I feel, and she understands me. In the same vein, if I'm working too much and I'm not around enough, this week she said, I'm starting to feel it, that you're not around enough. Mm. And my ego comes into play, and I go, fuck you. I don't say that out loud. My brain goes, fuck you. Reaction. Take a breath, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. And when you have this relationship as a man where you can give and receive, it is bliss. It is so beautiful. And every man deserves that.
Absolutely.
And if you're a guy listening to this and you don't have that, like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's time to get it.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of anything? Success? What's the point of having kids if they see that?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
What would you say to a guy who's listening to this right now? They're like, I want that. I want sex. I want appreciation. I want communication. I want connection. But I'm busy. But I'm stressed. But I have so much else going on. And they're putting 40, 60, 80 hours a week into business. Mm-hmm. And they have these problems over here. Mm-hmm. What do you say to a guy like that?
Gets to shift. You get to put in as much work as you do with business into the relationship. You got to be willing to work hard at it and have patience. And just like any skill that you could build up in business, it's a skill to make a relationship work. It's something that you build up. You're not going to get it perfect the first while that you do it. It's going to take patience. It's going to take time. And keep working at it. Be willing to invest that time into your relationship. And if you're working 60 hours a week, maybe work 50 hours a week. Put 10 hours into your relationship. Shift it a little bit. Even 5 hours. 1 hour. Shift it in some kind of way.
Yep.
And learn the tools. be willing to invest in yourself so that you can navigate your relationship better. And I had to do a lot of investing in myself, thousands of dollars, before I had successful relationships.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it takes a lot of work. But
Yeah.
as soon as you can accept that it takes work, I think for me at least, it gives me a level of being able to have patience with myself, and like, no, okay, I'm going to put in work. I'm going to do little things here and there. I'm going to, or invest in a program like ours.
We speed it up for you.
And speed it up.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many guys get incredible results in the matter of weeks, which they thought were never possible. Just guy after guy after guy.
Yeah.
Because it's an intense 8-week program that you've put together, it's just insane for guys that, speeds it way up.
Well, this is the thing, right? Like, I think we forget as men that there's now pain and later pain. So if you're listening to this and your relationship isn't where you need it to be, which is most men do not have a great relationship. Let's just be honest. The divorce rate's 50% for men. That's divorces. That's not people who are unhappy in loveless, sexless marriages or relationships. So we know our relationship's breaking down. There's the pain of doing something about it now, which is difficult conversations, spending time and money to upgrade yourself, learning new skills, doing things that you don't want to do, sacrificing time at work. But we forget that if we don't make the time now, the cost of divorce, the cost of your children being traumatized and not knowing how to have a healthy relationship in their future, it's so much greater. But again, as men, we don't think about the later pain. One of the most powerful tools I've used in my life is I bring the later pain forward. Like, seriously, if I'm arguing with Rosie, which doesn't happen often, or if I'm yelling at my daughter, I tell myself I'm literally fucking up my family's future. I make that pain closer. I'm like, if I keep doing this, my wife will leave. Now, my wife's not going to leave me. I have a great marriage. But I make that later pain real. And I think as men, we're conditioned and taught to ignore pain, to bottle up our feelings and emotions. So we suppress them and we bottle them up and then we fucking explode. And we don't have healthy coping mechanisms. So if you are listening to this, like, what is the pain now of a fucked up marriage? And understand, like you said, it's going to be difficult and hard to fix it. Embrace that.
Yeah.
How do you build a great business? You fucking grind into it. It can be an hour a week and you'll avoid so much pain later.
Yeah.
And it also ties to children. Like, your kids are watching your relationship all the fucking time.
Absolutely.
All the time. So I know that you're currently in a relationship with my coach, Kristen, who's also been on the pod.
Yeah.
And she's an amazing human. You've got a son together as well, stepson. What have been the biggest challenges you've faced in previous relationships or your current relationship that most men can navigate? And what are some tools that you would use with Kristen or with Caden or with in those relationships to heal? Like, what's helped you and what are the biggest struggles you have had?
Man.
Where do I begin?
So many. I mean, there's a reason I coach relationships. It's experience in having not the best relationships. You know, in learning from those experiences. So, I mean, some of the biggest challenges for me have been how to voice certain things. How to open up properly without triggering the other person. And I opened up many times and triggered the shit out of them, and then I got triggered, and then it just escalates super quickly. So I would say the biggest challenge is actually just within myself. It's navigating a relationship knowing that I have full control over myself and I can control the relationship by controlling myself and controlling my emotions. And if I can control my emotions, my relationships are going to be way better. But if I don't learn how to control my mind and control my emotions, the relationship's not going to work with anybody. So for me, it's a necessary life skill to be able to control my own self and my own thoughts, calm myself down, also have empathy for the other person. Think of, what is it like for her right now? What is it like for her to deal with me? And how am I acting that affects her in a certain way? Why is she so pissed off all the time? What was my role in that, in creating that in her?
Yep.
So I would say that's been the thing that I've put the most growth into and most practice into.
Yeah. What would you say is the roughest or hardest moment of your life when it comes to intimate relationships?
It's a good question. Relationships honestly have always been rough for me because I lost my mom when I was 5. So I always had a fear of abandonment and fear of rejection, or a feeling of not being enough, you know, or being broken. And I was very needy in relationships because of that, and just very insecure. It's hard to even admit that, you know, but I was very insecure within myself. Just breaking up, ending relationships, I think has been the biggest challenge for me. I'm very empathetic. I really care about people, and ending relationships that I know were not working or not serving me was really fucking hard. Because I still cared about the person, but I knew that if I end this right now, it's going to hurt them as well, you know, and I never wanted to hurt them. And I've seen a lot of guys surprisingly in similar positions at EMM, you know, just terrified to get out of a relationship that is absolutely not working. And it's not going to work probably, you know, no matter how much time and effort they've put into it or put into themselves. Sometimes it just doesn't work, unfortunately, you know? So for me, it's been ending relationships that I knew were not working and staying in them too long.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, a lot of guys right now who are trying to fix their marriage or have relationship issues, what you just shared is exactly how your wife feels. When my ex left me 8 years ago, she sat me down and said, I don't love you anymore. And my entire world fucking shattered. And in that moment, and the 3 months afterwards, I went into victim and blame. How could you do this to me? We're meant to be together for life. We just bought a house together. Like, we have everything planned. I was blaming her. She didn't give me any signs. She didn't warn me. But she was thinking about it for 6 months prior. She said to me 6 months before those words at a cafe, I don't think we're going to work out. And my response to that was, don't say things like that. And I completely swept it under the rug, did not communicate about it further. And after years of looking back, there were so many warning signs.
Yeah.
As men, we ignore these warning signs.
Yeah.
Like, is there a possibility right now that your partner is sitting there as a man, you're listening to this, and she's thinking in her head, I don't know if this is going to work out. I don't know if this is the man I fell in love with. Can I have a future with this guy? Like, there are so many women thinking that. Even my wife, when Talia was born for 6 months, I wasn't there, working, grinding. At the end of those 6 months, she told me, I don't know if we're going to work out in the future. But I already had that experience, so I instantly talked about it and resolved it instead of sweeping it under the rug.
That's key.
We sweep so much of the shit under the rug because it's hard. Yes, it's hard, but so is fucking another man raising your kids or fucking your wife in your house that you built from that success.
100%.
Powerful and true, yet so many men don't listen.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a guy who's listening to this today? One piece of advice, the takeaway.
Yeah.
His relationships are not working. Whether your wife is about to fucking leave, she's already left, or you just don't have sex, you're not connected, you argue about stupid shit. The kids are seeing it. What do you say to that man right now listening to this going, you know what? I need to do something.
Yeah. Work on yourself. Invest in yourself. Do the fucking hard work. Do the internal hard work. Face yourself. Have the courage to face the shit going on inside and do something about that. Because most of what we do is getting guys to realize that if you fix yourself, you can fix your relationships. But until you fix yourself, you're not going to fix your relationships, most likely. You get to fix what's going on inside of you and face that shit. Face the tough stuff it's hard to face, whatever. If it's trauma, if it's whatever it is, be willing to face it. Have the fucking courage to face it. And invest in yourself. Do the work.
Amazing. So powerful. So if you're a guy who's struggling to face the reality of your inner situation, you know your marriage is breaking down, your relationship is lifeless, sexless, or even on the brink of breaking down, then you and I both know that gets to change. But as men, we're not taught these things, which is why we've hired experts like Jameson in the Empowered Man program. And I want to help you fix your relationship just like he's helped thousands of men to do too. If you click the link down below, you'll be able to book a free coaching session with our Empowered Man team. And on that session, we'll build out a custom roadmap to help you fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance. We've used this exact same roadmap with over 5,000 fathers, and I know it can help you too. So if you want that roadmap for free, click the link down below right now and get your coaching session with the Empowered Man team. Jameson, this has been a fucking amazing conversation. Anything else you want to share with the men listening before we finish up?
I would just say you're going to get through it wherever you're at if you do the work. But you get to face it. Just face it, fucking do it, and you'll get through it. It'll be okay. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.